After the leaves turn brown in the fall, hunters from all over the world flock to South Dakota just to get a shot at this little fella, the ring-necked pheasant.
They're snaky rascals and they'll humble you often. Their first safety net is to hide, and his second mode of escape is to run, and the last defense is to fly.
The locals get their turn first, and just before that weekend, something else happens. The trust industry meets to talk about all the money being hidden in South Dakota. It's become the place the super rich now hide their fortunes. But the secret, well, it's getting out.
South Dakota gives trusts sweeping protections and secrecy.
A CNBC investigation, headlines in the Wall Street Journal, the Daily Mail, and the Guardian from across the pond.
She cannot unpack her belongings because they're owned by the trust, and her legal bills now top $3 million.
And all because a Texas divorce case is shining a light on South Dakota that's making some powerful people very uncomfortable. But not this state senator from the small town of Britain.
I'm offended that South Dakota's trust laws are being used by anyone, but rich people, to avoid their familial responsibilities that they wouldn't be able to evade if South Dakota hadn't created this little trust empire here.
It's community property. It's 50-50. I want what's fair.
Marie Bosarge is fighting an army of lawyers both in Houston and Sioux Falls just trying to get justice. She was married for 30 years to this guy, Ed Bosarge. They had really nothing at the beginning of their marriage, but boy, along the way, they became billionaires.
But one can only imagine how incredible it must be to live this lifestyle daily.
Look at how they lived in Houston. This mansion in Maine was just one of their extra places to stay. They bought this Caribbean island called Over Yonder Cay. And with an island, you need yachts. This one was called Marie. But now Marie Bosarge has next to nothing. Years ago, Ed Bosarge got a young Russian girlfriend and secretly moved up to $2.3 billion into secret South Dakota trusts, all while Marie was kept in the dark. Everything from the mansions all the way down to the sponges in the kitchen. Seriously. The coronavirus delayed her jury trial in Houston this spring, but Marie's alleging the South Dakota trusts, they're fraudulent. And Judge Chip Wells has warned Ed's lawyers he will not let South Dakota laws cheat her. Quoting, "I don't think the laws of South Dakota, the state of Texas, or anything that we might imagine somehow frees him of an obligation that he has undertaken at the time he married Mrs. Bosarge."
I think it's important that the South Dakota legislature become aware of this issue and consider the real-time, real-life consequences to people around the country of their actions.
The complicated financial trusts have become huge business in South Dakota. Millions in franchise taxes, a way for the rich to control their money, even in debt, for generations to come. Senator Wismer, she doesn't like it in principle.
Our democracy needs a functioning middle class, and when assets continually get concentrated among fewer and fewer people, that's not healthy for a democracy.
Few in the South Dakota legislature seem to ever question much about trusts. Audio from this state Senate hearing boasts about the jobs they create.
There are 450 South Dakota residents employed by the trust companies, that they earn $30 million in annual salaries from that.
Most of us have no clue how this financial maze is set up, and those folks like it that way. Want to hear the Kool-Aid being drunk? Listen to South Dakota State Senator Lee Schoenbeck.
This is a fascinating industry. If you get a chance, I know we were all invited. They have that seminar in Sioux Falls. That's the Thursday before the opening of pheasant season, which I'm sure is purely coincidental.
Yeah, that's right. It's a coincidence. And that's why they put a pheasant right on the brochure, Senator. Do you think South Dakota has chosen money over morality?
South Dakota does that all the time.
Senator Wismer learned in 2018 that it's not really smart to ask too many questions about trusts.
Having any publicity, as far as they're concerned, that doesn't come from them, they don't want.
Her comments in 2018 made headlines in South Dakota newspapers.
Basically, this is a tax avoidance mechanism that historically our laws have discouraged. It's really nothing to be proud of.
Wismer got a tongue lashing from Senator David Lust.
To think for an instant that these trusts would not be located offshore, benefiting foreign countries, is incredibly naive.
There aren't enough advocates on the side of the little people to even understand what it is that the legislature is doing to our trust laws.
Do you think the trust should be able to be used to evade child support?
No, of course not. And I think that if a majority of South Dakota legislators were aware of some of these more egregious cases, it might help us put the brakes on this industry a little bit.
In 2019, the South Dakota Supreme Court ruled that these secret trusts, they could actually be used to avoid child support. The next big test of South Dakota's little secret will come from Marie Bosarge.
It's frustrating. It's my money. It's my money too. That's what's so frustrating.
South Dakota Judge Robin Hallman ruled against Marie. The court documents are secret, so the public can't see why. Like in Texas, South Dakota judges are elected. But when we asked to see Hallman's campaign reports, we were told she hasn't run since 2014, and the only reports they have on file are blank. Marie Bosarge has now appealed to the South Dakota Supreme Court. We can't see those court documents either, another secret. And if this guy is any judge, her justice may have to come instead from the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington.
Please welcome Chief Justice David Gilbertson.
At the State of the Judiciary last year, longtime Chief Justice David Gilbertson talked about the growing number of lawsuits involving trusts.
To some, South Dakota is considered a flyover state. That erroneous perception, however, does not apply to the world of trusts.
Watch as South Dakota's top judge then turns into some kind of a cheerleader, boasting about how much money rich folks are pouring into the state.
$3.2 trillion, and that's trillion, folks, not billion. $3.2 trillion is invested in trusts in South Dakota. South Dakota is now the #1 state in the country in the amount of trust deposits.
$3.2 trillion and no one's paying taxes on it? Is anyone in Washington listening? South Dakota's become a state where you can hide your money to avoid some basic morality, quite frankly. Like paying child support, you get to cheat your spouse. Is that what voters in South Dakota really want?
She says Ed Bosarge hated paying taxes.
He always made the comment, only dumb people pay taxes.
It all seemed kind of funny to the Chief Justice.
While many people may find a way to fly over South Dakota, somehow their dollars find a way to land here.
Marie Bosarge isn't laughing. She feels betrayed, a victim of fraud. You don't think people in South Dakota would want trust law to be used to cheat a spouse?
No, I don't think so, and I don't think that legislators, as they've been presented with these refinements to the trust law, have a clue that this is what they've enabled.
Ed Basara showed up in a wheelchair for his deposition in Houston back in March. We saw him at his house moments before, and he seemed to be walking just fine. There were more news stories when the 81-year-old Houston billionaire told his lawyers he now had the coronavirus. At his age, a possible death sentence. But it looks like he survived just fine. A Houston Culture magazine recently highlighted the reopening of the fancy Houston restaurant Tony's. And there was Ed Bosarge and his young Russian girlfriend. Looks like he'll be healthy for his showdown with Marie later this summer in Harris County Family Court.
All of the secrecy and abuse that these court cases are bringing to light. In South Dakota, the legislators want to do the right thing. If we were all aware of how our trust laws have been abused, in particular situations that have come to light nationally, I'm hoping that we'll be able to change some of these secrecy provisions.
Marie Bosarge is counting on it because South Dakota faces an interesting question. If their courts ignore her, how is any woman safe from South Dakota secrecy anywhere in the country?